first rule about making a deal with a demon? Don't. Anonymous. Welcome, humble adventurers, to my realm of knowledge and mystery. Here, in my cursed library, are endless tomes and scrolls on the darkest and evilest foes in all the realms, be they from Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, the many worlds of darkness, or any realm in between. Welcome to the Dastardly decimal system. I'm your caretaker of the corrupt, the librarian, Castor Cain. Pacts with otherworldly beings are a dangerous thing. You never know what tricks they have up their sleeve, and what evil that they are preparing. What's far more dangerous are the mortals who are willing to make a deal in exchange for power. You should always fear those that give up their souls just to be stronger. Grab a seat, adventurer, because the tea is ready. I have brewed demon tea. This is a chocolatey tea with some floral and citrus flavors. It is a rich tea suitable for even a fiend's palate. This seems fitting as we discuss Sarya Dlardrageth. Sarya had deep red skin with hair that was a mix of orange and gold. Her hair always seemed to flow like it was a mane of flame, flickering in the darkness. From a distance, her pointed ears looked identical to most elves, but upon closer inspection, they possessed a scalloped edge. She was short and girlish, but had a seductive, femme fatale beauty that exceeded even her elven features. Her gold eyes burned like bright coals, and she had large, bat-like wings emerging from her back. She wore the gilded gown of Salusa, a black robe embroidered with gold and enchanted to be as strong as steel. She wields a magic staff and resides in a floating fortress. The Cambion Countess is aloof, unforgiving, and totally without remorse. While her abilities make her a formidable foe, she prefers to have her son and nephew sully their hands in combat while she remains the schemer behind the scenes. Sarya is a powerful caster who relies on strong evocation spells in battle. She also uses cruel spells to get her way, by controlling a foe's mind with Dominate Person, or simply watching them painfully die by casting Finger of Death. Sarya also channels her innate magic to summon more demonic foes onto the battlefield. Physically, Sarya is only an elf of 180 years old, but due to her eons of imprisonment, her mental age vastly outweighs that of her body's. In the many realms that I have studied, I have seen countless people make deals with fiends to increase their power, to strengthen their magic, or to better their standing in the world. None, however, have gone as far as the fey'ri. Eons ago, House Dlardrageth were normal sun elves. Like many other houses, they were looking to increase their own stature and power, to rise in the elven court, but lacked the ability to do so on their own. That's when they turned to the fiends. They began to breed with demons in a bid for power and magic. Centuries have passed, and the breeding continued until the term elf just no longer fit for their lineage. The fey'ri were to elves what tieflings were to humans, nothing but a distant genetic memory. This leader of the new lineage was a terrifying, sadistic woman named Sarya Dlardrageth. Sarya was the youngest child and sole daughter of House Dlardrageth's matron, Zilthara, and her Baelor father. Sarya spent her life in awe of her mother and sought to emulate her. desperate to become the next house matron. She always ordered her family and friends around, and her awesome temper would flare quickly to a burning heat if she were ever disobeyed or ignored. House Dlardrageth spent years corrupting and destroying various elven houses in a bid to claim the crown. When they were eventually arrested and imprisoned, it sparked the Seven Citadels War. This was a brutal and costly war that lasted 200 years. The war came to an end when the realms of Sharvan brought their full military might down upon them. Furious at this event, Sarya promised revenge. The fey'ri opened portals throughout the realms, unleashing hordes of demons and monsters directly into the elven-populated centers. Sarya laughed maniacally, basking in her vengeance as she watched the slaughter of Sharvan and its eventual collapse. Her act could not go unpunished. Because of this cruelty, the entirety of House Dlardrageth was imprisoned in a magical suspension. Their bodies would not age, but their minds would be awake. 5,000 years passed, Sarya's bitterness growing with each passing century, before the accidental bumblings of harpers broke the seal, freeing the fey'ri upon Faerun once more. Furious at her imprisonment, Sarya sought vengeance upon the descendants of her enemies. She freed the rest of the Daemon Fae and moved into the buried city of Mithglorosh. She found the Mythal, one that had prevented the entrance of fiends into the city, and quickly corrupted it. Not only did it allow her to summon an army of demons bound to her will, but it drastically fueled and strengthened her magic. Sarya also began political machinations, recruiting legions of orcs, goblins, and bugbears to form her new military might. Then she began her attacks. She started by attacking the High Forest, obliterating the wood elf settlements that lay there, before launching a massive offensive on the fabled elven city of Evereska. It took the combined might of Evereska and Evermeet to repel Sarya, but not without great losses. Sarya retreated, this time claiming the legendary ruined city of Myth Draenor as her brand new home. This was a move that came with the added benefit of angering the elves even further. Myth Draenor had been lost to them for centuries, and all efforts to retake the city had failed. So seeing Sarya sitting upon the Myth Draenor throne was like a slap to the face and a reminder of their constant failure. With the Lost City as her new fortress, Sarya planned on conquering the entire regions of the Dale Lands, the Moon Sea, and even Sembia. Sarya even went as far as to make a deal with the Branded King in order to corrupt the legendary Mythal of Myth Draenor to even further increase her own power. Unable to watch the legendary city be occupied by the fey'ri, Lord Cerevel Miritar assembled a massive elven army. Accompanied by various human allies from the Dales and mercenary armies from Sembia, Lord Miritar launched a holy crusade to retake Myth Draenor. The battle was long and quite costly, but it proved successful. With the aid of heroes and archmages, elves and humans alike, Sarya's army eventually fell, and she too was eventually cut down. The legacy of House Dlardrageth will always be one of pain, suffering, and greed. Sarya was a violent woman who would stop at nothing to fulfill her rage and her desire for power. She cared most about her fey'ri, her own family, and would be willing to sacrifice the demon fae in any battle. Lesser races like the orcs and goblins were beneath her, and she pretty much chuckled whenever they died. But the history of her house will forever be filled with the great evil that they have done. House Dlardrageth was responsible for the corruption and poisoning of two very powerful elven houses, House Raethel and House Yezvi. It was by her hand alone that the destruction of Sharvin occurred. But I think what frightens me more is the imprisonment that she went under. Can you imagine? Thousands of years, unable to move, unable to act. You are there, awake, your mind completely active, staring out into the nothingness. Thousands of years for your hate and vile inside of you to grow. It's a terrifying thought, and an act that may have caused more harm than it prevented. With Sarya dead, the fey'ri and the demon fae scattered to the four corners, hiding and biding their time for their return, as they patiently collected their wealth and power. While most of House Dlardrageth were slain, I refuse to count them out. This sinister house has a habit of returning, time after time. In Waterdeep, Lilian Viantin Dlardrageth, the last heir of Sarah, acts as a masked lord and a chosen of the goddess Bezaba. To make matters worse, the assassin Tiriani Eoloth, the rumored granddaughter of Sarya, still lives, hiding somewhere across the realm, living in the shadows, her blade ever ready to strike. What House Dlardrageth lacks in morality, they make up for in survivability, and that thought alone is enough to keep me up at night. It seems that our tea has once again run dry, which means our time is up. Join me again in my library for more stories and lore about the darkest villains from the darkest realms. This has been the Dastardly Decimal System, and once again, I am your librarian, Castor Cain. Do you love the Dastardly Decimal System and want to support us? Check out our new Patreon. Members will get access to show notes, official artwork, our new bonus episode series called Cleaning Up After Tea Time, and of course, plenty of cat pics of Vega voice actors Vash and Zid. You'll even be able to suggest a topic for a future episode. Check us out at patreon.com/Dastardly Decimal System. If you're not financially able and still want to support us, suggest the show to a D&D loving friend. It really helps us get noticed. The Dastardly Decimal System can be found on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at DD System Podcast. That's Delta Delta System Podcast. Drop us a message and say hi. Vega always loves the attention. This podcast was produced by Midnight Reading Audio, a division of Midnight Reading Publishing. The voice of Castor Cain is Larry Gent. Hi. The voice of Vega is provided by my cats, Vash and Zid. Music was No Confies by Andreas Rodriguez from Pixabay.com, licensed under Creative Commons. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.